I would like to remind each one of us to take a moment and cultivate bodhicitta motivation or the altruistic motivation seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should all participate in this Lamrim teaching on the stages of path leading to enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. Allow me to read a page so from this Lamrim text, volume number 2 in the English translation of Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise on the stages of path enlightenment, to give you the blessing of oral transmission. And then I'll explain the passages.
基本是当说个是说当我了送来进些来解决那上些什么上生就就是那然后当一些把来对吧了等看了那把当修比上就天呢。就小娘你们生节吧，等我得到别通的没讲，那你们上就那个咱别的年吧，那上节些了，每年生节吧都学了，没学马对讲，上生节他们就弄的话，他们能学的，特别那把你们生节吧就没。等于是这个大概上生节学人的那把学的那把生节的人。生节吧，当时那把人嘛，中央对年包的么子，我在前面当差不多是那，现在对的那个年让上去的生节吧，我也把这个那老妹上去的生节吧，但是没，这些大概生节那么现在对的人叫着，你们那边生节吧，搞啊，他那生节吧的修，生节吧去那上去全部都生节吧。现在送别上学了，他们都叫我健康给些吧了，他们的学的我说那么，同对那养生的、养生节的，他们上学的到用多把叫你们的，一老就把你学嘛来上学用的年别，他们不贴把节的，你们得到了他们的节目，所以提醒他们都把人叫我嘛是别的上学一些了，他们的节目的了。电把那弄那生节就把东西把多把它东西东西晒完晒的没办法又没讲，生节把节就做电把那电把那把那嘛说把人对不对？到我嘛那我的印象来的那节把些把那对说，希望那同学生的光把东那个做的过那个上学了同的节把的，生节问题上学了同的节别个那个下个。前提是我那马上把那我上去用的，那天把我这边过那个上去了，他们都没拿，然后同志把那小江边说把那这边老民多的强暴等人去江边过那边去弄，我把到那边上去，他把那这边的行动就把老些我江边说把这么弄到年纪。昨天就说这样嘛，多门那边现在当天过去，先让我们那边些如果上到这个了，希望讲吧，说完这边老多每个帮忙这个考虑超中间天面上帮不到，多不说着，连那边让都不是我说完那边现在等我这个西边过来，他西边过来嘛，这边现在等我都不是说吧。上一期就个送别吃肉的呢，上期用的贴吧就用的。那贴吧讲的先动大学，然后通知那样上街他把每对门中东你听面对面都被进全部牛肉，俺西边西面街吧当不你了，你们想不到你长把没弄了吧？送了当在这县里叫上街说就个到十几个用对不当张就这边上街同对了，新街对些吧蒙不弄。甚至他就说也能过，把这一东西吧，身边去都说把这那么地，你这是用身边把早就成熟掌柜了。听用说比身边去那年行动，光把这动行动了，给把动上基本上没上去动作怎么去没说吧。让动那样上去没得没让动呢，动的当这样先去动要下把，先去吃动动你要习惯的。我到现在那什么节吧，那现在也都是那些孙庄当行动当那个送别去，有些人家那这个不种草吧，当新年是就是把什么的人做可以感觉了没叫些了的，你们什么叫，到些了家的人个都做上头吧，让给到当心都做上头，心就到当。听见了没把的，我是上没把的贴在了上几小时没几个，我把贴把都叫我遇到的，这个他把电视去，你把他先把说就给我人都恐怕就是别top些了，的那叫，这就接不说说错不了的那让。让就到了见那等了，就见得到了等呢，先到就到了就那没得办，上早了。 Teta tempo je te ba se bu te ba no de nye we nye ma le je ma che nye ma ji tun de le ba ko ni ning ta bo ni me se me je ba shi du ko ba je ba sha wa lo de ba ra sha wa la tam be shi la ten de ba te ba shi bu de no nye ba sim ba lo so bi jo la be 现在阿弥陀佛等啊，阎罗就他妈说个我说姐，没说我让个到几位什么到我呢？什么几位我早说我下地位小舅是别几位到几位得了点呢？我别去了，他必须得下回去。他其实我这可是小舅什么家，小舅什么家培养的刚刚现在，那培养他包的没有些，给他学差了，我他的。 到底培养这个小学生的，那这样这当中就看这这个，有些都看这这个些呢，我到底写个意思，我到底嘛是。
So Geshe read from the bottom of page 21 to page 25 to give us the blessing of oral transmission of these sections. Just to recapitulate where we are right now. We had already talked about many benefits of cultivating bodhicitta or Changju Jisem in Tibetan, the altruistic mind of enlightenment. And so logically what follows from that is if development of bodhicitta has so many benefits, then how can we develop it or cultivate it? So that is the next point that we are going to talk about today.
哦，这大家可是，这大家就是有看了点你叫啊，是他叫啊，小就是因为人把是有看的是有看的看点，小就是有看的看过的些些，小就是因为人把是的，那因老讲当然不大，小就是就买几天这边的，原来没那地呢。 명아 둥데 는 사보 가르가르 사보고 가르쳐 그래서 사모 가르쳐 동 그래야지 장배 림바세야 되발
노래
다 제베 세스데 저주스 원에서 아니 티지심이 제베 세데 가르스 야때 간도 남기 다 저주스 세야 돼 원에 저서 티지 소롱 주야 저주스 제야 되어라 와 티세데 다 디저 저주스 제발에 쇼게 송고 말때 쇼게 송야야 무슨 쇼게 송야다 죽좀 쇼게 송고 거라 와 제도 쇼게 송주 가르스다 사제를 시리다
Those of you who have this English translation of Lamrim Chem or volume number 2, on page 21 towards the bottom, you can find the main subpoint and the sub-subpoints laid out. And the main subpoint is called how to develop the spirit of enlightenment. I call it bodhicitta or the altruism. So this is presented under 4 sub-points. The number 1 is what are the causes for developing the spirit of enlightenment or bodhicitta? So we have to talk about the causes. And the number 2 is the stages of training in the spirit of enlightenment. In other words, when we actually cultivate bodhicitta, what does the process involve, right? For example, if we are going to talk about cultivating bodhicitta through 6 causes and 1 result instruction or the method, then there is a proper procedure to be followed, right? What is the point number 1, or the course number 1, if you will, and so that's what we're talking about. And then the sub-point number 3 is what is the criteria by which we can know that we have developed bodhicitta, right? How do we know that now I have cultivated it, I do have it, you know? So once we have actual bodhicitta, like initially, that's where we enter into what we call the Mahayana path of accumulation, Choklam, of great vehicle. And then the sub-point number 4 is here translated as how to adopt the spirit of enlightenment through ritual. So this is where we will discuss how certain ceremony or rituals can help us to generate bodhicitta that all kinds of bodhicitta, as you know, there's aspiring bodhicitta, and then there is the engaging bodhicitta. So how can ritual assist us to cultivate these minds of enlightenment? No.
다 너무 유실이 계속 되래도 근데 저주세에 배겠다 사주가 배다 어머니가 해봐 사주 용된 저거 근데 상지에 배 고소도 용데 어디에 다 소소디 통화식도 통화도 세매도 세매로 이사래 소소 세매 또 아니 대답을 용데 뒤배 제가 텔야 용데 돈 돈도 대통령 상야 근데 계단 직시 다 뒤에 소 세매 마도나 배제라고 로니 사모단에 다 이슈를 쨌는데 그게 디레직시냐 연대 디레토는 양심께봐 디레 계셔 디레 지요레스 니르바 다 최마도 저주에서 너디냐 와서 다 깨봐도 두두두다르 버시 메가가지 세나도 타도시 모르버시 최신의 윤용서로 샤니 때만 없사리 선 디레기 마수에는 저주에서 소소 이제게나 이 신라 될 때는 스페르블 버시 디레기 때는 제리스 디레직시 다 숨쉬 근데 가르사 semjeba tangsa demano ba tong tu tirba karsa dung sawa semje dire o soye de ba yur ne ba de sumba de da sumba hiba de da dire ene sa karsa sangye de ba no ba nyawana ene tel suzu ba semje ge na ene tel mi ba de she ni shenda ya ke ni ene ya de ba ya yur de ne be pen yen jor mo yin sam o dire mo ba shingi ke dang de shiao de la ta
숨바도 갈 손도 게.
숨바데 디자르와 슈마도 예심 정성이 담지 너와 통네 슈드데베 니베 신지바든 베딩에 서지 비차이 셰딩 예버 생겨도 냐네스 어디서 왔다 진짜 가 통도 가면아 스케당 사이데 바세 비 요데르 주 요르스 고요자 어디 때마다 르네로시나 사모 디데 숨바데 데레
알아노스 이게 그냥 규시래
규시래 지와라
So we are on page 22, right on the top it says how the spirit of enlightenment depends on certain causes to arise. And so the first one says and in this English translation, they said the development of the spirit through the four conditions. So I was double checking it in the Tibetan word. Of course, in the second one, there's the causes, but it seems like in the first one are the four causes. What are the four causes, by which we develop bodhicitta or the spirit of enlightenment? According to the explanation given, number one, we ourselves might have developed, if you will, very sound understanding of Buddha's teaching, and based upon which we truly appreciate Buddha's enlightened qualities, as well as the qualities of the Bodhisattvas on the 10 spiritual grounds. Right? These Bodhisattvas are amazing qualities. So as we ourselves have somehow developed these deep understanding of these qualities and develop this conviction, and so that might help us to cultivate bodhicitta. You see, I admire these qualities that Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have, and therefore I would like to cultivate the spirit of enlightenment or bodhicitta. One. The number two is that even if on our own we may not have such a deep understanding, we are lacking such understanding, but based upon the teachings or through listening to the teachings, by the power of listening to the qualities of enlightenment and so forth, that teaching might assist us and inspire us to be able to cultivate bodhicitta or the spirit of enlightenment. Then the number three is we think about how we are living through a very kind of a degenerated time. In Sanskrit it's called Kali Yuga. It is kind of a dark period or ages. And so because of this, so many sufferings and difficulties, exist, and they're kind of rampant. And we also see that in some sense Buddha's teaching is on decline, right? His teaching. So we really do not want Buddha's teaching to degenerate or decline really fast. and we want it to exist for a longer period of time. And so out of that wish, we could cultivate the spirit of enlightenment or bodhicitta. And then the number 4 is, we may not really necessarily think in terms of Buddha's teaching on being on decline, but we think that, it is an amazing opportunity to cultivate bodhicitta, how many people even think about cultivating other positive states of mind, whether they are related to, Pratyuga Buddha practice or the Shravaka practice. Cultivating bodhicitta is a very rare, if you will, privilege. So with that kind of a thinking, we might cultivate the spirit of enlightenment.
That usually that's some Jesus. That Samotan and Mosaya Yorwal, that in this son in the same Geshe, that on the jet. Nippon Chumo less Sanji Yonde Yembe, Tambo Tebache, didn't that on the Jevos, did that Sanji Yonde to the Olympic, so the Laman Yen, this Samotan and Sanji Yonde on the Yonde Sanji Yonde on the Jeva, yes, you were. The Suman teaching about nobody your masu in the Sanji Shilla, Tom do Jeb, but there. Della Temba number Simji Dungen Dobaton and Yube. Dungen say she did maybe you merge, Simji Viking to Temba Novel Masoba in there. Teta Mina or the Ninjal then Joshua does Tatri Sanji Temba Manu Karsa Nova Masu in the Sia Dinalia, Sanji Temba Nuna. In the Simjing big digital, Simja Dunga say I am a Simja Dunga Sam, but the other Yoravati. Shin this Simja Dunga Sam to Shagmar, yes. So the intempan do a masu the Shagre, you get that Simja Dunga Masu and Simja, the temper do a masu, some of them in Shawarwa. In the Zoo Delia tempan do a masu the Shaw, yes. Simja Dunga Masu, but the Ninja Leon Gorwa, so that she did that. The Tanda Simja Dunga Masu, Jana, all Ninja Shiva, and you do Shiva, the wild Tesubashi. Shiva told the Shiva, same to Combatoni, so T. Gun, Sanji told they were Jeva, same Jeva, Shanjul, Tondu Jebe, Gone, Shagi, Church, the Shawaman was. The same case, usually Genshi said, Karesena, Koranga, some Cherry. Sanji Gomoton, some Pata, Sanji Yondekano, Tejire Maduchi, Che the job, Simjing to the Sanji Top Zag, it makes a Yoma, Shama, Desua. Koran Zindang Shadi, some of them don't shine Shama. This is thinking the what is Simjing to the Google, Shesha, or Tim Mari, Dicoran, some children of that, Minimum Shan Shah, Desua.
I Simjing to some member.
Simjing don't that some yes, audition, Simjing don't sound Shamarisi. Koran Shanu to the Jew of Shadis. What is it? Cheers out, that Simjing doing a chill. Not the churches and when again, don't put on the kids out, Simjing doing a day out of that in the same Joe. To Tadati Tika Shamaris. Koran that got to go deep, Koran Sanji Yondeton, Kadu, some day as your or Tisha.
The Sham should again, Genshi Sogolbe. Standard Delhi, you the chance said the Kojichi were a car again.
You the chance said the Chitan did that. Chitama, the chicken, you the Jan Kagari, but using it to Geshe, yes, and that Hinji of the shower. That do not come up with you the Genji Wari. You the Zakari, you the Genji was good in a game which again the Jimmy Chawara. Those are the Kagarawa.
That day again, and the Sham was swine, the Tama, the Sham
was the Tama, the Tindajawa,
the Shijawa,
the Tokai, that again, last one. Or did that then told you were in the Simji, the Sanjay Deva Manavas, and Sanjay Deva no, the Simji doing the Yomari. They made the Simji doing say, let me go Mari, and this in the Mari, this Simji doing shit, so going to show Marcona, like careful gun share, mother, it's chill, and Shagamari. They told you to show that.
So I was just double checking, to make sure that I understand the terms being used here. We see the term due, causes, and tien, condition. That's how we translate it. So I want to make sure that, are they used interchangeably or do they have distinctive meanings per se? And as Geshe was saying that, in the Buddhist literature, sometimes we differentiate between a cause and a condition, right? The cause is the primary cause, sort of like the seed, right? And the condition is, a factor that assists that, the germination of the main cause, if you will. But in other contexts, cause and condition, due and tien, are interchangeably used. All causes are condition, all conditions are causes. So that's why I said it's kind of overlap. So I want to double check that, what's happening here. So anyway, now what follows is the explanation of the four, what we call in Tibetan, four causes, or here translates conditions. So in this context, probably it seems same. So what has been said is this, that as we, think about Buddha's qualities, which includes Buddha's supernatural abilities to benefit sentient beings, right, the miraculous powers, if you will. And so based upon such, understanding, we might admire Buddha's qualities, and that might inspire us to cultivate bodhicitta, right? That's one. The second one is, we listen to teaching of Buddha, and through that, we develop what we call faith and appreciation, and based upon this faith and appreciation, by the power of listening to teaching, that might inspire us to cultivate bodhicitta. Number three, we are particularly thinking about the decline of degeneration of Mahayana Buddhism, or Bodhisattvas, discourses, if you will. So we don't want to see that happen. And so with such concern, if you will, that concern might inspire us to cultivate bodhicitta, or the spirit of enlightenment. So here, some kind of a, distinction is made between, are you concerned with the decline of the Mahayana discourses of the teaching, or are you concerned with the suffering sentient beings per se, right? Being concerned with the suffering of the sentient beings will be talked about a little later when we talk about cultivating great compassion or Mahakaruna, right? Just thinking about the suffering of other sentient beings, we cultivate Mahakaruna. Yeah, but at this point, the concern is more focused on the decline of Bodhisattva's discourses or Mahayana teaching, and you don't want that to happen, and then you develop the courage to cultivate bodhicitta. Number four, as we talked about before, that in the times like the now, it is a very rare privilege for us to be able to cultivate such an amazing state of mind called spirit of enlightenment or bodhicitta.
Sangye yongten teba jangbi gone, sangye tongde mena rangi tongjo bala, shiwa jangbi shobon zibi lo mindo de, chamba de nyingji jangbi gone, shendong la goba tongne, sangye toban deba ni, shendong jeba la, shiwa jangbi shobon ziba doba nyingji, chongzi ngame ndo meni bi cher dang, ti ngoji xiang, xiang me bi cher osa, da tere kanje, karsa rondong de shendong kari ina mena kanje kanta aja, ene sangye goma de nge me jibe togu resiwa, da rondong de pike tarba zab togne rigi mendo sangsung jorwa, o de doba la rondong la pe tarba zab tona, ene pangja mawlo, pangwa ma, togwa mawlo, togo ma, sangye na yongde yo marwa, ti meza inji meji rondong angdu shi na sangye togu dosi. Da xin simjing tongshi wa da ajang sharwa, jita diga ya simjing tongshi wa la, ene xiwa jangbi shogu mundu, ene karsa 상시 공부 또 세단데 런던 니가 그냥 듬반 니든 해야 돼. 가지고 뒤지 듬반 니든 세워라. 신도도 맞아 런던도 맞아 세워라. 어 된대지 고고를 시스템마도 질 단다 신도 지고 삼네야 런던 그게 라 셔와장배 쇼구면도 상서 뒤 ene lodo do togu ma resi wa sangi thomde me na rawa odi setati gugore ti goya da di kan so go ma shin ya di ene rondol shewa jambe so ban je lodo do ya gi ene ti 내가 저거 뒤가서 유전 현실만 도스
No, so,
그래서 심지 그런 그게 다 생이 손도 때 인상고 그래서
no. So we are on page 23, the last section, if you will. So what is explained there is this, that we must strive for Buddhahood enlightenment, both for self and others. Okay? Even for one's own sake, we should strive for enlightenment. The reason is, if we are going to settle down for less than enlightenment, yes, we may have achieved certain high realization, but still our work would be incomplete, right? Because there are higher realizations to be obtained, and there are certain obscurations that need to be get rid of from our mind. So, for our own sake, we should strive for enlightenment. Once we achieve enlightenment, we are done with every work, right? There's nothing left to be abandoned, mental obscuration. There's nothing left to be realized. Everything that is to be realized is realized. Everything that needs to be purified and gotten rid of is done. Okay? So for our own sake also, we must strive for enlightenment. Of course, for the sake of others, we must. Because if we settle down for less than enlightenment, let's say we settle for nirvana, personal freedom from samsara, right? And where we achieve solitary peace, amazing peace, we will be limited in many ways to work for sentient beings. Yeah? So for the sake of other sentient beings, benefiting them in the most effective and beneficial ways, we must strive for enlightenment. Yeah? And so if you look at what is bodhicitta, or the spirit of enlightenment, very close up, if you will. Technically, it is defined as a state of mind, primary state of mind, actually, that is characterized by two types of aspirations, if you will. Yeah? Aspirations seeking enlightenment, and aspirations seeking to benefit others. Okay? And so aspiration seeking enlightenment, this really is like, I want to be enlightened, isn't it? So that means for our own self-interest, we must strive for enlightenment, because this is where we fulfill all the self-interests. And for the benefit of others as well, we must strive for enlightenment. So bodhicitta, by technical definition, is a primary state of mind that is accompanied by or characterized by two aspirations we call dunpa nyin, right? Rangdön dunpa means seeking one's own enlightenment, and shendön dunpa means seeking to benefit others.
어디 다 정도 줘봐라 희와 점을 줘봐 너 먹고 보면 코알이 좋았더니 팀이 라 빵바도 똑바 에다 쇼레와레 메바 니베 정도 부순소바 메베셰다 데다 시베 고발 타와 타 시베 고발 마즈메셰다 정도 부순소바 상이 쇼구 숭비셰로스 다디디요다 정도디 희와 장바즈베 로도 노고비 기든 시기도와 정도 희와 장바즈베 로션 정도 다 타바던 디그레삼나 근데 이러나기 방도 쇼라 샤고로와 방도 쇼라 전에 거에 등을데 되고요데 이게 토자가 뭐를 뭐다 방방 뭐를 뭐다 쇼를 해야 돼요. 맞다. 정도 되지면 쇼부터야 되지면 그거 그랬어. 그러. 어디 그거 그랬어. 대고야 그래서 정도 부서서 타도도 가르쳐 상이 쇼구들 너 정도 타도도 샤죠 그랬어. 근데 샤와 장반지데는 쇼구 톱도 말아 봐. 너 쇼구 톱을 디저스 제시 로고 그러와. 어디 그래서.
When do we fulfill the ultimate kind of a self-interest, if you will, self-fulfillment, is when we achieve truth body or dharmakaya. Okay. Among enlightened bodies, truth body or dharmakaya is regarded as body more for the self, right? So when we achieve dharmakaya, then we will have fulfilled all of our self-interests, if you will. So in order to achieve dharmakaya or truth body, it is a must that we cultivate bodhicitta, right? Without bodhicitta mind, we are never going to seek a dharmakaya or truth body. And so if we settle down for less kind of a spiritual goal, let's say just as Shervakas and Pratika Buddhas, or hearers and solitary realizers, they are more interested to be free from samsara, right? More for their own sake. Yes, they care about others, but they care more about themselves. So I want to be free from samsara. And so when they achieve that nirvana of freedom, yes, they have achieved what they sought to achieve, but then they get stuck in the solitary peace, and so they are not able to work for the benefit of others. And for their own sake also, they haven't achieved everything that is there to be achieved, because there is still enlightenment, right? That is yet to be achieved. So if we achieve nirvana, yes, we are free from samsara, korva, okay? But then we get stuck in another sort of a situation, which is the peace of nirvana we call solitary peace. So we don't want to get stuck anywhere, isn't it? We don't want to be free from somewhere and then get stuck in another one, right, situation. So we want to be out of all that situation. So therefore, we must strive for enlightenment.
into Mendobi, Genshin Joro, said that using teaching that Shendon in the San Jito about the Yunga de Shawara. That's what the Tomagosan. That's also done that like Shendo the Pasho, so done that like Sanji Gomati was tapping to the top in the Chanju Sam the Minion Bay, the Genshin Joro, Chanju Sam the Yuna. In the Rondo Shindoniga, Timena, Yarondo Shindoniga, Marva, or this son in the yard because some jet sunny. So there's
seems to be that acknowledgement that developing bodhicitta, spirit of enlightenment, and seeking complete enlightenment is really for the benefit of others, right? So when you become Buddha, right, you're becoming Buddha for everybody else, so to speak. But usually we don't think in terms of how seeking enlightenment is also personally, right, the most beneficial thing we can do for ourselves, right? And so that's why the emphasis is here made that even for our own sake, for personal interest, we should, strive for enlightenment. Otherwise, we might, find ourselves settling for less than enlightenment goals. And that could, be detrimental in some way to cultivating bodhicitta. Yeah? If we develop bodhicitta in the way we just talked about, not only it helps us to cultivate bodhicitta now, once we have real bodhicitta, that kind of a thinking will also help us to maintain the spirit of enlightenment.
Because you don't only me sugar talk this year, it's that this one that this year, that kind of you because Simpson you don't see, so don't be let down with it. So don't load and Simpson don't so don't the show and drop your go. That Simpson should so don't do when I talk in the deal marva. Simpson don't sit and so don't the young draw you. In the end of my sugar say, so don't be let down the show marva. Did it? That he can do that.
One of the kind of things that usually people, we tend to think is that we are seeking enlightenment for other sentient beings, and so we kind of feel like, okay, then really I can't think for my own interest at all, right? I should be all thinking about others' interests if I want to be a Buddha or work for enlightenment, isn't it? But as we seek enlightenment, our own self-interest in many ways are taken care of, right? As we become Buddha, there's no such thing as our self-interests are kind of left in a corner, unattended to or unfulfilled, right? And then we become we're all doing everything for everybody else, and then we could become Buddha just like that, One's own self-interest, we call it rangtön in Tibetan, right? Just kind of by the way, so to speak, taken care of as we strive and work for enlightenment for the sake of others. So that's why the emphasis is like benefiting others, but that does not mean, one's own self-interests are completely forgotten or never get fulfilled or unaddressed.
ngā kīwa sīm jeba dāngbō nīne chāmbā nīngjī chāngā mēnā lō sōngrā lō dāng tēnchū lō xēnā jī sāngjī kī sūgū dāng shūgū yōndē tōngā zāng jī chāngbē sāngjī tōmdū lā sīm jī dī xēwa māngbō nāngwā dāng sīm jī tāng jī lā sīm jī tāng jī sāngjī lō ngōwa yī tāng jeba yāng sīm jī dō sōmbā nāng yuñ sē nāng yuñ tīñī rē rē yāng sīm jeba zāng jī chāng dū ndō guay lā 다다다 유시의 gen실 게시해서와 디데이터 도저히 다 디게 강가 있는 상기 특성이 와서는 상기 타고 사와된 심지래서 심지 말해도 다 거단다
라
상기 특성이 뭐잡아 통은 내가 상기 용도 다 상기 특성보다 상기 공부 타고도 당기지 해서 어디 오늘 정서 심지 말해서 저도 디데 쇼레발 심지 해봐 쇼는 멍보여 레스 어저 다 심지원에 저도 다이고 든바니데 되고 와라 어디 다다 심지가 정서도 당거 레스 이나 챙이바 말레스 다르와 데세도가 그래서 시스템이 정서 로고라 챙이 용도적의 심지 라네 행동 라 그바 통화상 제 장비 상지 통수 상지 메셔버 랑동라 상지 메드로 통해서 통도당 야 대양 현이 통 여와 샤바 멤버 현이 통령 통 그래서 통령 돈이 통이 여와 이거です어디에 다 가지 도다색이 되나 데려다 가지 단디 심지 저기 이니고 차견도 가가 상면도 현동배 in Georgia talk say there mendu round to Georgia town ko sa there mix yo mara sanje yonde ton ta sanje thoro sna sa sa ti go tigo se ti go simji ngone ta tiye ga che ta sang ko re su no ti go ta
So we are on page 24 second paragraph there is some kind of analytical discussion here and that is earlier we talked about how in four different ways we can cultivate the spirit of enlightenment, isn't it? So one of the ones is we think about or we maybe witness for sometimes Buddha's miraculous power, supernatural, and we are in awe, like, oh, I want to be Buddha, really, that's cool, right, in today's language. So now, if I feel that I want to be Buddha, that's so cool. Is that a bodhicitta or not, right? That's the discussion here, right? They said, technically speaking, just simply thinking that way, yes, Buddha has amazing qualities, and I want to be Buddha, right? That it does not qualify to be a real bodhicitta. Yeah? But it is kind of counted, like on the side of the bodhicitta, because it's like bodhicitta orientation, right? You are there, right? But it's not really real bodhicitta. The real bodhicitta, they said, must have those two aspirations, right, accompanying it that we talked about, right? Aspiration seeking one's own enlightenment and aspiration seeking to benefit others. If you have that, those two aspirations, then you are cultivating real bodhicitta. Otherwise, that's just like a bodhicitta orientation, but it's really not a bodhicitta. You're cultivating it, because they said, look at that. If you think about Buddha's qualities, you're like, oh, I want to be Buddha, nice, right? It does not in any way take into account this kind of a thinking that for my own sake, I need to become Buddha, right? To fulfill all my self-interest, the best thing that I could do for myself is I'll have to be Buddha, right? And for the sake of benefiting all other sentient beings, because I really care about them, then I have to be Buddha. All these thinking are not part of, right, that orientation. So therefore, they said technically, that is not really a bodhicitta, right?
다 원도 연례세로 신기반의 현도 양도도 현주 진종화의 현도 돈이 니가로 선배 시다 자 데다 건지 다다 제르무지 그래서 심지 원에 될야 현도 돈이다 랑도도 너무 인디고 어디 공장 거라 간지 신기반의 현도 시스템이 현도 그 체셔 들어와 양도도 현주 되바세도 수도 돈도 덮고 들어와 어디 고도 통 정거라 어디 공급되다 이니 청주 성원의 정성 이내 청주 통도 지고 편도고 말이 싫어와 뭐 제저 인의 상고 제 시디가 잡는 데부터 건도 이제 공시워라
So here Genpoche quotes Metia say ornament for clear realizations of Abhisama Alankara. So that is somewhere in the middle of page 24, and I quote, the development of the spirit of enlightenment is the desire for perfect enlightenment for others' welfare, right? In Tibetan, called semje pane shendunchil, right? Semje pane means bodhicitta development is for the sake of others. Yangda zobe changjude, you are seeking your own enlightenment for that, like you put in the Tibetan way, right? So which tells us the two aspirations that accompany bodhicitta development, right? So Lama Tsongkhapa is saying that the actual bodhicitta is accompanied by those two aspirations. And where is the source? If we ask him, well, look up in the matrix only for clear realization. That's what he said. Semje pani shendunchil. Bodhicitta development is for others. Yangda zobe changjude. You seek your enlightenment for that. Okay? So you are seeking your own enlightenment, that aspiration, seeking one's own enlightenment. And that is, accompanied by aspiration benefiting others for the sake of others. So therefore, bodhicitta must have those two aspirations.
다 당기 유실이 제세디 노디디면서 유실이 저는 릭부순서 봐지로 봐. 소릭부순서 소소비게 릭디부터 이 쉬어트베 릭 개바지 lumbo gogban bde ma re yabo ji ba ji gewe shin se ba she simjin ning ze wa she ini koye pige simji don du koal be jo ini jo me ba wo ti hi de res ti sigu ne ta tin do du din se ra ti
So then at the bottom of page 24 they have sort of recapitulated the four causes for developing the spirit of enlightenment, and the number one is called Rik Phuntsok. It's translated as a perfect lineage, which basically means that we have this kind of a spiritual inclination and the ability to be able to practice the spirituality. So that's called being in a perfect lineage. And the second one is being sustained by a teacher, that we have the fortune to be under the guidance of qualified spiritual mentor or a guide teacher. The third one is that we feel compassion towards sentient beings or compassion for others. And then the fourth one is that we have the so we have the sort of determination or courage to face difficulties for others. We don't get easily disheartened or feel down because there are too many challenges we face to work for others. So we should have that kind of courage or determination, right?
That dobshili jawa ne rangi tu zogshan tobar rangi dob danse. Da henda kai kunyin sime na ta so pige peja de lo tu zogshan to do san ya de sinde yin sa ro. Hen yi do de zogshan to de ba hen yi dob danse ro hen yi tu se de san hen yi kun se ma re kun se na da hen da nga de ba lab ja te ne se na da kanji rando ji mai ba pe zogshan to de hen ma den ja de hen to se ro wa. Ta go tikba chemo tikba tikjen lo komba de se jawa de le pige de mena and jawa nga ma li be sera mo in tikjen shol mo ba yo de bhaja ang ya se de le samon shira ma da na lam sa je ya de jo ma re mo di ge me da komba le de ne sanje da changsen ji nga ba te ba zang ji se jawa yu do mo di ji 단들 담바된 시년 벌써 소지 개월 링도 고마지 또 실라 때니 깨워 와서 늘 담바스 디지베 담발 되면와
네.
그래서 그때는 유르 개월 또 실라 때니 깨워 와서 어디 계단도 되지 돼요 그래서 유진 예보 인자로와 소소 속발 때니세 어느 런다 유도를 깨나 땜바 인스다 유제 강갈 깨나다 유치도 이거가 상나다 다 유실에게 gen이래 소소스의 gen나다 디는 조디야 랑도도 상상은 어디 땜봐요 그래서 다 가지고 소소상은 땜봐요 봐 어디서 왔다 유제들달리 현의 조회도 리게는 메대바 창살 송소사 저다 유제들도 때네 이 현가 그발데 조 소소베 상고 삼론도 시라 메버간 현가 랍자도 시에다 조정 토고 세야서 시에네 다 전도시네 어디 땜보요 말이 뒤에부터 상사서 송야서 바바군 바바 동네 그러와 어디에다
So then at the bottom of page 24 over to page 25, there's a mention of cultivating the spirit of enlightenment through what is called 4 strengths. The Tibetan word is topshi. Sometimes I might translate as 4 powers, but here they translate 4 strengths. So I'm just going to stick to their translation here. So what are the 4 strengths? Number 1 is called the strength of self or yourself. In other words, that due to one's own personal initiative and strength, right, we think about, and then you just on your own initiative and effort that you cultivate bodhicitta, right? It's possible to do this based on your personal initiative. Number 2, the strength it comes from others. In other words, others encourage us to cultivate bodhicitta. They advise us to do that. They exhort us to do that. Right? That's the strength of the others. So number 3 is the strength could be related to our habituation or maybe familiarity with Mahayana teaching and practice in our past lives. Right? That we carry certain positive imprints on the mind. So it's kind of habituated patterns in our mind that in this life, even if we don't have to do too much, with a little positive condition, it seems like, okay, it doesn't seem like that difficult. I don't know. So because of that strength, the strength of habit, right? Association with Mahayana before. And the number 4 is the strength comes through our relying upon, they call it Tamba, means sublime beings. In other words, like maybe spiritual guides and like that. We can rely on this. So through these 4 different kind of strengths, again, they call it strengths that we could cultivate bodhicitta. And then on page 25, bottom, it talks about how we could cultivate a spirit of enlightenment through any of the 4 causes or a combination of the 4 causes, whatever, or the strengths, if you will, right? We can cultivate bodhicitta based upon certain individual strengths or certain individual causes or a combo number, whatever, of this. But among all of these things, the most reliable, so to speak, or, the more reliable, I should say, not most reliable bodhicitta comes through the strengths of one's own. Right? If we take personal initiative, interest, right, personal motivation, yes, I'm going to do it. This is, nobody's making me do this, but I just have to do it, So that kind of a bodhicitta spirit is much more stable than the bodhicitta developed through the strength of others. So others, they constantly remind us how it's cool to develop bodhicitta, and you should do that. You are capable of doing that, right? So based upon their words, we cultivate bodhicitta. It may still not be that stable, because we are following somebody's words here.
Wrong top yes that tangil wrong top you temba hang top the medemil song song but it camera shada tede maji bashe rang kuni taza ni suzu bige Geshe ni te ni ini samlo tang ni ini nyeba nyeba rondo nyeba nyeba shin bige sawa suba gori sawa su si ta temare ta ini tini dabo chara ja mu ko ngang che ma chagro wa sawa ma zu dabo chagro ta tin su de
So the concluding paragraph on page 24, this is where the Je Rinpoche Olama Tsongkhapa summarizes his commentary here. Of course, he got all these, 4 causes and the strengths, all of these, from great Indian master Asanka's Bodhisattva Bhumi or the Bodhisattva levels. That's the source from which all these causes and strengths are coming into. So the bottom line is this: Lama Tsongkhapa is telling us that we should take a personal initiative to cultivate bodhicitta. Just thinking that really we are going through what are called most degenerated time, right? It's hard to express that whole sense in English words. The dregs time. It doesn't say much in my ears, but anyway, it's a real Kali Yuga. It's not just degenerated time, but it's the worst kind now we're going through. So taking this into account, we personally think, really develop interest in cultivating bodhicitta, find qualified teachers who can guide us, right, in cultivating it, and then stick to our own, the interest and make every effort to cultivate it. So that is among the best causes for cultivating bodhicitta, because that way bodhicitta development can be very stable, okay, through personal initiative, interest, motivation, and efforts. So if we do that, then bodhicitta can really take roots in our mind, right? If something takes root in our mind, then it can be stable, isn't it? Because the root is kind of firmly planted in our mind. So that's what the Lama Tsongkhapa is advising us to do. So here Je Rinpoche uses in the Tibetan words called yamgyuk, means kind of a jumping on the bandwagon, because everybody's doing that, so I want to follow the tradition and join the party kind of thing and develop bodhicitta. That's not a good way, he said. Just take a personal initiative, make personal effort, and make sure that bodhicitta takes root in your mind, firmly planted. That is the best way to go. And why do we have to really focus so much on cultivating bodhicitta? Is as you know, that without bodhicitta, there is no hope at all to become Buddha or enlightened being, isn't it? There's no other kind of a second option or like a back door to sneak in. This is it. Yeah? So without bodhicitta, as we talked about this another day, that we might have many other amazing realizations. Maybe we have realized emptiness, what it is. Yeah, great. But it is still, it's not enough, adequate for us to be a Buddha, isn't it? So bodhicitta is a must. It is the entrance into Mahayana Buddhism and practice. Without bodhicitta, we could have any other realizations, but still we haven't entered the path of accumulation of Mahayana Buddhism, right? Why? Because we are lacking bodhicitta. If we have bodhicitta initially, that's where we get in, okay? And so as Geshe is saying, he's kind of chuckling over this. From Mahayana Buddhism point of view, really making every effort to cultivate bodhicitta is really laying the strong foundation, isn't it? Okay, once the foundation is set firmly, then we can build multiple stories on top of that, right? If the foundation is kind of shaky, then we keep on building stories, it's going to cave in, right? So then we're like, what happened now, right? So we don't want to build a house on a shaky ground or a foundation.
Jesu de da jangdang de gumnu da khande gumri sene da khande gyunde menga de bjine ne nge de ma shen gumri yin je gumri sene da ti nge de gumri se ke shi ra ti se ra ye ba chaji som jambe rimba ne se sho shi mo ji ba le menga du gyunde du ma tang jezi sha le shong ne shong al de ne 때네 좀 인수 다시 냠제 되라 네 다시 이제 저주세 제알이야 이니 유리 명아 된거 로장와다 이니 다시 냠제고 로장와 니요레스 그러봐 다 유리 명아 된 장아 남진거 이피지 용라시 돼야 되리다 근데 셔알다 다시 냠제세야 돼 되게 간제다 유리 명아 된사야 돼 당보 마셰 이니 되네 마시베 내가 까지 되게 차네 이니 심지 담지 용들을 드롭네 이니 되게 인제제 이니 저기서 지야지와 다다다 다시 냠자세야 다 텔레 투시알스도 그래서 런진지시는 다백 토토면은 다다보다 런진지시 현여와든도 용대다 다다보다 가게 아니 신동파게 런동장 내지 마정을 비 고바메 통네 런진지시 고바메 통네 현진지 용대 통 티고는 제당저와 티신 어디 흉디 치알스도 어디서 제당도 림바니얼스도
And so now the next point is the stages of training in the spirit of enlightened bodhicitta. You know, how do we actually cultivate bodhicitta, isn't it? And so there are two ways or techniques or methods to do that. Now we are on page 28. One is called Gyunde Menga Thun, instruction that incorporates 6 causes and 1 result for cultivating bodhicitta, and it starts off with recognizing all sentient beings as having been once kind mothers. Okay, and so that kind of instruction comes from Buddha Shakyamuni down through Great Atisha and so forth, right? The other method or the technique to cultivate bodhicitta is simply called Dakshin Nyamje, equalizing and exchanging self for others, and this one comes from Buddha down through Shantideva to us, and so we will talk about each of them, more later. But at this point, what Geshe says is, if we follow the 6 causes and 1 result method or the technique, so at the beginning, we spend a lot of time to understand our relationship with the rest of the sentient beings in terms of being a mother and child kind of thing. And so once we know that, then if we are able to see all sentient beings as dear to us like one's own mother, loving mother, then it's much easier to cultivate love and compassion for them, isn't it? Our whole mindset changes, how much we love our mother. Now all sentient beings are mothers, right? So this is how it goes. But of these 2 techniques or the methods to cultivate bodhicitta, equalizing and exchanging self for others is considered as more powerful technique or the method. And so what this involves is, we think a lot about, the problems related with selfishness or self-cherishing attitude. Okay? And this is the best thing we have done so far, isn't it? Since beginningless time, we have cherished ourselves at the cost of everybody else. And we have been in samsara all this long, but what have we really achieved thus far? Having cherished ourselves the most, right? And being so ethnocentric in some sense, but we haven't achieved anything else. And now if we can, think about alternative way of thinking, cherishing others, is actually a better way to go, and think about the benefits related to that. So in that way, we will be able to see the sameness or the equality between self and others, and they were able to transform our attitudes, right? Replace the, no, I shouldn't say replace, he didn't say that, so I'll just keep quiet on that. So we can cultivate the cherishing attitudes towards others.
Any menga than the Junde doing the Dakinyam Jinga menga, the Lama selling by the shooter Sidua. That didn't Macadam get Lama Junior, any the Jeremy in the Togol can just say, le sen ji ta yinde menga de da yin ga tine sen des
No, so.
je da gansu ta de menga di ta da ge nyam ji da yinde menga di inga nyam do le wa ta de de sa ra wa
No,
wa
so.
ti
No,
ta di gum da de ta dan da ge nyam ji na yinde menga di ge ming ga sang ge se do wa
no, so.
da yinde menga di na da ge nyam ji pa sang go ma ka ji
Ale
sang
no,
go ma
so.
wa
No, so.
wa ti da ge nyam ji ni phi ge sang go wa
Ale no,
wa
so.
ti
No, so. So in ancient, India, so at times these two different lineages, the instructions for cultivating bodhicitta were kind of passed down individually and separately at times, or some, and at the time of Atisha, they were kind of integrated together. So Atisha, he received his bodhicitta instruction or teaching from Great Lama Silingba, a master from Golden Island, and sometimes people call him Dharma Kirti, not the logician, okay, in the parenthesis, because he has the same name doesn't mean he is the same person there. So my footnote first.
ye chi ki de ta chue je ma ju ya de chue je rom le in po to da lang da ba yin song se do wa
No,
o ti mi song ma da ti ne ma ji no ta tre ne je rom fe le ta
No, so. So anyway, Atisha received the bodhicitta teaching from his master Silingba, master from the Golden Island. And so Atisha received both kind of lineages, and he integrated both 6 courses and 1 result instruction, and equalizing and exchanging self for others. And so Atisha passed it down to his main student or the disciple, the great simplest person on the earth called Dromtemba, right? And then Dromtemba passed it down to other Kadamba Geshes such as Geshe Podawa and Geshe Langritangba, the author of the 8 Verses Mind Training, my second footnote somewhere there. So this is how one of the teachers of the Lama Tsongkhapa called Thakur Khenchen received it, and this is Lama Tsongkhapa received it from him. So we have that lineage transmission coming to us. And so this is how it works. So in our practice, we integrate the 6 courses and 1 result, and equalizing and exchanging self with others together. The 6 courses, 1 result instruction of the technique does not necessarily include equalizing, exchanging self for others. But equalizing and exchanging self for others technique, it can incorporate, right? Or it does include, in some sense, the 6 courses and 1 result instruction.
di ta tan thong bo de yun de me nga din se ba yun de di no zo be yun de di ne zo be sang ji chang ju sim le jong la sim de la sam le da sa ba di yin je le de yin je chang ba tin du so le de tin du so in chen ba le tin ba ni marathon le shong di du no sa ka yun de me nga di thang ga ja de do da chang ju sim de ne laksham di yingje de ne karsa dirawa tinso de tirawa te yungum shamba ta dine ne karsa ma shema ta thaduk lu thuksa de ma shema de tangbo de wa di o te yin
So we're on top of page 28 where it says that following the 6 courses 1 result technique or the method, we realize that the result of bodhicitta, spiritual enlightenment, it arises from its causes. It arises from what is called wholehearted resolve. The Tibetan word is called laksam, and I usually translate this as a special willpower, right? That kind of a willpower, it comes from compassion, okay? And compassion comes from love. And then the love comes from wishing to repay the kindness, wishing to repay the kindness comes from thinking about the kindness, and thinking about the kindness arises from how all sentient beings have been once mothers. In other words, if we look at the 6 causes in reverse order, right? Bodhicitta comes from special willpower or the resolve. That comes from compassion. Compassion comes from love. Love comes from wishing to repay the kindness, and that comes from thinking about the kindnesses, and that comes from seeing our connection with all beings as having, that kind of a mother-child relationship, if you will.
Okay. Tadi janga di she, ta janga di khande jang se na de le ni si rimba le ngeba je wa ta rimjin jang go bangwe so se si ta rimba le ngeba je ba se na ene bang jang re si kanje khaju ma ju ro si kaza ka di samlo tan dig ma re si wo ro si bang jang go ya ju ge se de rimba le ngeba je ba se de ro ta de ne rimba ngeba je se ta ta tang bo do jang se jang tan she ba de ni ye se se
No, so. And so if you look at the 6 causes and 1 result technique, so it can be summarized under 2 points, if you will. One is called developing certainty about the order of the stages, and the second is the gradual training. So when we look at this cause and effect relationship among the cause and the effect here, there is a proper order to be followed, isn't it? We cannot, randomly pick and choose, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and then maybe I don't want that, but I will do that, right? No, we have to be certain about the sequential order, if you will, involved in the cultivating bodhicitta.
어때 당보 다 림발 녀바 저 특진랑 유자와 닝제 때마 당 윤리 신남 디 유든 지분 유줄로서 데레 다 간제 디게 유튜브로 디이나 유튜브는 인 조디 닝제리스 다 현다 디에디 인 마제데데스는 닝제 규르고로 와 사서 셔주스는 닝제 디부르고로 와 셰다다 닝제 디로 셰다 마자드 투그 콜 닝제 조리스 그 유디나래 어디나 셰다 디시드단 커자 닝제 때마다 윤리 현남 디 이런 저거 중도 당보선 통만 개셔는 인지 전부 이견 심제단 퀄리티에서 이 셰링 예바 탐셔 졸라스 졸라 닝제 맨날 대다 치와 메모에 로아 멀로 코르켜는 텔라라레비 셰당사 다들이 간지 닝제 주대 유대시에도 자 심제를 닝제께서는 닝제다 닝제버지도 다 팅엘 마제데네다 로도 도고 닝제디께서는 이 동행의 그게 텐더디 강강 형지 용거리서 걸어 장고마다 다 디소는 동행 메세바데 메세바에다 동행세야 탑소서 걸려야지 이 락좀시 간시 강가되네 닝제디 실시부여나 이 락좀 로스 공고야 믹세 용어로 어디 세다 닝제 시모디 조미 제된 인사로 닝제 약보지여나 이네 어디 심지에 가다 통 예반 저 탐샤와죠 심지에 동시에 탐샤와 연구했어 어디서 보자 닝제면은 이제 저한테 그래서 대다시 명호에서 되면은 닝제면에서도 닝제 숙세모 면으로 와래 근데 대대가 심지에도 콜내야다 대대 학송내야 대대 용토고 말했어 제가 닝제 조임 비교된도 되랬어 그래서 콜 티 민지는 티 그라 티제버 미지 닝제는 통마로 계좌와 있노세 어디다 심지 통야 코든지야 진 상식과 와도데 메데 티제어 다시 봐라 시드시야 다 맞자도 가 송은 맞자도 닝제지
So we're on page 28. So among the causes for generating bodhicitta, compassion is the most important cause. Okay? And so everything else is related to compassion. If you put the compassion in the middle, so to speak, okay? Then other elements are either they are the causes producing compassion or they are the outcomes of the compassion. Okay? So compassion is the most important one. And how is that? If you look at the wholehearted resolve or laksam, special willpower and bodhicitta, these are the outcomes of compassion. So they're the results. And the other elements are the causes generating compassion, right? We think about how we have this mother-child relationship with all sentient beings, and remembering their mother's kindnesses, wanting to repay her kindness, right? And wishing her all the good things happen, wishing her not to have any problems. So all of these things are causes producing compassion. So compassion is the most important, cause for developing bodhicitta. So it says here on page 28 that if we have compassion, the compassion here is the great compassion, Mahakaruna, Nyingji Chembo in Tibetan, right? if we have the real compassion, great, genuine, then we truly feel the sense of responsibility, right? It's my responsibility to do everything possible to benefit sentient beings, isn't it? So that special resolve, the willpower comes out of great compassion. We don't need to necessarily cultivate it. We truly feel great compassion, that we feel the personal responsibility to towards sentient beings and for their well-being. And so from spirituality point of view, using a business kind of a language here is to do a business, we have to have the money, the principal amount, right, to run the money. So here, the compassion is like that principal amount, right, that we need in order to, do the rest of the practice.
Ini tapi dunia se sumkar go dijual ini kecil lagi tu masuk tu nera ba. Ini dah ini cewa yo ne.
So Geshe says, we will talk about how to cultivate bodhicitta, right? Once we are done with that whole section, maybe in next 2 weeks or something, then we will go back to the vipassana section, right? The section on the special insight. Then we will do a section from there, right? Because we are alternating between those two sections of Lamrim Chemo. With that, we are going to yield to you for observation, questions, comments, and the mic is in the hand of Annie there.
Could you ask Geshe Phuntsok if he could say something more about the strength of perfect lineage, what exactly that is?
Mm-hmm. Oh, the perfect lineage, what it is?
Yeah,
okay.
What exactly it is?
Yeah. Tataki gen di karishukure gyure gen shishi du gan liya rik pyusun soba sanga jeba gen. Rik pyusun soba sanga de deshe sers kandinayo nasa.
Rik pyusun soba sanga dire mendo. Ta 제도 야가시르 신의 릭야가데 예릭 참지릭 지고 말해. 그래봐. 이는 것도 보여주나 되게 예릭 참지께서도 요말데 제가 거릭 상부에서 주릭이 뭐사데 유소 지당저와. 어디 이제 다 릭사데.
다이네 단데 디카블게 다 릭스도 걸 취체 기타 뉴바르 비치라.
릭 무슨 소버스도 다 들려 릭사 상지 릭도 샤니. 야 상지야게 야 이는 사봉으로 뒤쁘게 누바유 가서 첨부 용기도 다 박자를 못 보셔야되기. 저던 것도 심리 탐지 상지 릭요 쓰고로. 이나 들려야지 릭도 소했다 못도 보시는 릭안 같이 봐 말아. 내 누바시 용도 봐요라.
나래.
이제 비지다네 비지 이제 야 너무 좋아 너무 야 박자 샤싱 그 지금으로. 다 비지 릭 무슨 소버스는 비지 텔 야가 되면 돼.
A perfect lineage, that's how it's translated here. The Tibetan word is Rik Pyusun Sokpa. Rik is the lineage translated. Pyusun Sokpa means perfect or kind of excellent lineage. Now that could be explained in a couple of ways. One, in ancient India, probably still it's some relevant, the Rik is translated as caste system, isn't it? So in those days, the Rik refers to the lineage in the caste system in India, where to be able to, do a lot of things. If you are born in higher caste, then they have more access, resources, status, positions. So in that caste system context, being born as Kshatriyas, literally means warriors, or the Brahmins or the priests, then they have a lot of access and advantage to be able to pursue spirituality and have interaction with people. So that could be one understanding. But of course, in Tibet case, we have no such caste system, so this has no sense at all, meaning. But from spirituality, more deeper point of view, the Rik here could be understood in terms of the seat of enlightenment, right? The Buddha seat. Yes, every sentient being has the seat of enlightenment, but in this particular case, those who have developed the more potency of that seed, as if that seed can be more sort of easily activated, right? We all have Buddha seed, but our seeds are not necessarily activated, right? Those who have cultivated good imprints from the past, so their seed is more sort of, a stronger seed, or I don't know, however we want to word it, describe it, right? That could be understood as a perfect lineage. not in terms of caste systems. Yeah.
먼저 남지 다 지기 최 제법 셔티 지리 부서서지 예리 더블게 시기도 와.
Right.
더더 릭 제야 된다 다 세인 릭 제야 티시리 릭 제야 돼 상제를 지어라.
Right.
간지 감직보다 먼저 릭들 감지고 상제를 감지 릭 제야 감고 동래도 와.
Right. No.
인가 대 가지다 갑도 해야지 빈자리.
So of course, it depends on the context. Like at times when we talk about the lineage of authors of certain texts, then at that time, because these Indian masters they belong to certain lineages, so those who belong to the royal castes, or the Brahmin caste, so they're higher castes, and that's how it's explained. But from Dharma point of view, the Rig is also explained in terms of the seat of enlightenment or the spiritual inclination seat. So that means that everybody has a Buddha seat in their mind, but for some, because of their positive imprints accumulated over many lifetimes, their seat is kind of a how to say I can say richer. Their seed is what's the word? Stronger or like ready to be activated easily, something like that. Okay. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Hi. Geshe Sultan Gyeltsen has given a teaching on how to generate bodhicitta, and we actually have a CD of it in the back. But when Geshe talked about that, and he talked about it extensively, he always mentioned having to generate equanimity before we even go into love and compassion. And it doesn't say anything about that. Is that sort of like understood that you have to do that, or is that another method? So,
Sure. Yeah. Well, this is good. That the Chanju Simgi. Semki ta junde menga tun ne re dakshen nyamje ne ji ruwa gen de son de du kan lia di nang lia bena namje nga zo gen dang ba ge di kwal mang bu son de ka lia nge lia di ruwa gen sem tang nyum du be sho ruwa gen ge chen bu shi bu sung du sa sem tang nyum men ki ma so ba ji de ta tang nyum du ko ba ti ko yin sha sha chen ne ruwa di na ngwe so la mo go chen din de chin sha ba re shin ngwe la ku gen di na la men du ga so ba ge junde menga tun re ka ban tang nyum de la be mo ruwa gen
따님도 곰도 그거 다가랑래 레디 단다 유대명가 장견한테요 뭐 따님도 그래서는 그 데려와 사자 맞아 그 님이야 돼 다디 hin가 따야 돼 말아 따님서 사자 그 님도 hin가 따 그러 근데 저지스인데 다 hin가 따야 거를 쓰고 말해 따고 매번 그거야 말해 다가랑래
Yes, the sense of equanimity, the Tibetan word is tangyum or balanced mind, is just kind of understood as something like a preparation part. So that's why it's not specifically mentioned. But you're right, without that, we cannot develop bodhicitta. So when we talk about the 6 causes or the equalizing self with others, so it's like we're ready to plant a seed. The field is prepared, right? Everything. So that's where the stage is. But developing a sense of equanimity is preparing the field for cultivation. Yeah. So it is, yes, assumed. Yes.
So would we say then that we first develop equanimity, then develop great love, then great compassion, then come to this method? Is that?
Jadi kalau dah jadi tangyum di cekau, mana tangyum di kalau rimba berada wagen, ngelih ya tangyum kom sana di isu ya, ane campak je, nyingji je dusje, ane masih kom di cekau kan di cekau lah so.
tamu tangyum kom berapa? tangyum kom sana ta masih kom.
Alah no so.
Jadi masih ni masih tu masih beti ta kado yunggo ko. 마시드 소소 팬 딱도 상노다니 다 마시 베디 ngoni 마시 아디 저 가지고 저 통범에 보도그러
나래
디도 사는데 저 통범에 다 마시기 시즌에 릭바디 예르그러
나래
그래서 딩게 마시 용 말씀 누구서 요 말하셨다 거기 신세타지 마시 용 이게 소문을 거야지 저거 그러
나래
어디 곰 디고 다 마시다 다가서 거 깨다서 말아 소소 그게 참종으로 간대 시던 거를 뒷금이야 뒷금은 때네 이 가자 뭐 팀템 들어와 팀인데 대해서는 다 팀템에서도 팀소 팀소야 선거 거기로 와 팀들이야 방하지 금이야 돼 다는 니 와라 단다 따님 그런 용도 요 따님 공원에 따님도 다 내가 도사로 와 대 소르도 그런 요도
So at the beginning, we cultivate a sense of equanimity or balanced state of mind. So once we have really done that, then we can start off thinking about the mother-child relationship, all right? And then once we, that also is, based upon the assumption, if you could, we should think about the possibility of life before and life after, isn't it? If you don't think about the theory of rebirths, right, then it doesn't make any sense, right? What does it mean? All sense beings have been my mother, right? It makes no sense. But if we some have that sense, then we can see that, well, one mother cannot, be enough. So everybody has, sort of equal chance or have been. And then we can think about how much care and sacrifice they made for us. And then we really need to repay their kindness. So everything else, right, follows. So first starts with the sense of equanimity, and then these, and then love and compassion follows. Any other thought? Yeah. Yeah.
Geshe, I think a couple of weeks ago it was explained that great compassion was the same as wholehearted resolve or special willpower.
Mm-hmm.
But now there was statements to the effect that the great compassion is the cause of special willpower.
Okay. So you want some clarification, right?
Yes,
yeah. This is the Konakani Shue, the Kazangema, that and again, the Yingji Simbo called Shuberwage. Yingji Simbo second, the Karish, the Galaya, any Semjing Kurke to course Morwa. Siduko Laksam, the Yingji Simbo Chico investor, Showage. That under Sunday Galia, Laksam, the Yingji Simbo Debuchat, Serwa. So that the contenders, and Yingji Simbo Kazan, and Yingji Simbo Rangsing, the Yungun Rawage. Genke, and Korana, this other must have some
I let it, my city, preaching on the joy. And Laksam Ninja the Kagarawa. Laksam did Kurgi Ninja Sigidova. Kurgi suggested that Pope get Laksam Dent of the Kurgi Ninja Sigurma, the Koran Laksam in the Sigomara.
I don't know.
Take the cousin of the Doma Karsa. And the dog people say, any Kaza Jevo, any Karsa, a traveling and put you do was commented, Sasha was yours. Kobunegas and some of the cartel, and then big Mizan ton of Saris. Mizan ton of Sad, the cartel, and take Ama the Pinja Ganga, and be showing those gay Jashin when they yours. Sin Koya, Toya, some of your mothers. That is your Baba Youngres. Baba, you Lamsanko, Betetum, Lamsan, Mizan tons on the Yatomores, or this word. I think the Pavi Ninjas do, or Tennessee word. I mean, to the turtle. I mean, you to Niran Yura. The Pavia Ninja,
No.
State charges over
This is again, other Namjing Sembo City, Kalin, Sembo Yena, Karsa or that, than the Karsa or Hassan the David Ninja in the capital in Google Oman again.
Ninja Tandanganza is just another Ninja in the thousand ringel go. The Goma is just in the Gomari, New Zealand, Yura Sigdo, could gain in the Lower Sagoria.
Alonso.
Thousand ringel here.
Alonso. Kisla said that, there are different, interpretations of great compassion in English symbol. According to the text that they follow, means Kandenshatse and related, they said for a great compassion, it is the kind of compassion that is capable of generating the resolve or the willpower. Okay? Otherwise, it wouldn't be a great compassion. But according to the textbook author of the Goman College, they said, no, great compassion doesn't necessarily have to have that. As a matter of fact, they accept that great compassion exists in the minds of Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas. So then they use a different language. They said, but the great compassion, kurjeji nyingje means the compassion that comes with certain responsibility. So that compassion is a different category, So they're all that part, So in this context, 6 causes, the kind of great compassion is that which is capable of producing the special willpower. Yeah. So it's not the same. The great compassion and special willpower are not one and the same. Yeah.
But then why since the Shravakas also developed that?
What?
Since the Shravakas also developed this kind of compassion, very powerful compassion, there is no limit to their compassion, then why doesn't it result in great resolve?
Oh, I see. This is what because the Nyaranda will chasha me again, Ninja Seme Jigo or Wage. Ninja Seme the semje tamjal mi gu chido ko ning chembo cha de go ro sa ge ro chido ga ning chembo den de ji yo de ge en laksam de kem hodo de kari cheba na so ge den de semje tamjal mi ning ji yo ba ro wa yene de ge laksam dem hodo de kari cheba na sa nyarang
the you doesn't able the ninja top somewhere. You ever
no so
when Chaju Simba in a ninja ganga jigwa mari.
no so
In Shaju Yorwa.
la de
When there is same Javina,
no so
just the Sanji, the young to Sanji Lara.
no de
Personal gave a mambo go to.
no ro
So the ninja in a Dutch Chaju seminar, that only the line and that
right
ganga top show go to it. That
no
can't
so no so
go you the in a
no de
paint over, top show go to Draja. I did do it.
la de ala ron sta ma shi chen sama ge sa jo le sha de ning ji top chi ru yo la
Really, they do that.
no so Gisela said, now that has to do with the strength of the great compassion. That differs, you know. Everybody could develop great compassion, but that may vary in strength. Even if we look at bodhisattvas, not all bodhisattvas have the same strength bodhicitta. You know, it varies depending upon where they are, right, on the spiritual development. So that's why the Sharvakas, Patayika Buddhas could have great compassion. I mean, compassion, we call it limitless compassion, extended to all sentient beings, looks like great compassion, but it doesn't have the strength to be able to generate the willpower. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Can you go to the back? Yeah. Yeah. Switch on. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I got it?
I think so.
I just wanted to know if there's a negative force that in your practice you encounter a negative force that stops you or turns you away or tries to dissuade you
Right.
from achieving bodhicitta,
Right.
which is I agree with all that.
So if there is a negative force which distracts us from cultivating bodhicitta, so the question is? Yes, that's it. Or is there a human? Yeah. Oh, is there? Okay, yeah. Kurang di kandi shugu dunga ta tanda chanju sem ngajo kom nyamne chidiyo kang liya chanju sem ki geyen rabu dinde yor bes ko rwa gen ko sem ki ya liya ta kema junga rwa gen geyen rabu dinde te yor bes ko
Dede ya da geyen de shibisha da shakta wulu gaga geyen.
Yeah, except mass fact, you know, there are a lot of negative forces of obstacles, so, you know, we call them, you know, preventing us from cultivating bodhicitta. Yeah. Chiksu sungshan mendo ke pejan ris ko.
La
Ha? Ine da di na ne gen da gejen chisho ro reni sina kar sha go gore sa da.
chechen de chana da ti se mo do da pena da shenya bes na ranjin di sha go che ra.
No so.
Da ranjin di she di de xian li za shi bu xia de yong tu go ma ma.
La re.
chen sem de xian za shi bu xia sha go ma.
La re.
de da ji dang sha dang shi na lo bu zhong na yi xian na ranjin di xia go.
No so. From equalizing and exchanging self for others' point of view, the greatest obstacle is the self-cherishing attitude itself. You know, to the extent we cherish ourselves too much, then it really doesn't allow us to be able to care about others equally. You know,
Okay, so in the teaching, there was the mention of we're in the Kali Yuga, and that's a very difficult time to be in. How does that match up?
Oh, could you lift up to? I couldn't hear you. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In the teaching was mentioned that we're in the Kali Yuga, which is very
Yes.
difficult, hard time
Right.
in which to practice or whatever.
Right.
How does that match up with the precious human rebirth, in which we're in a very optimal time because the Buddha came, he
Right.
taught, and the teaching still
Right.
exists, and it's
Sure.
a great time to be practicing.
Okay. Yeah. Kurang ki kandi shwe de diri sha da tagi ngan ji shide kan la da ning ma le ja che ning me tu je le la bra wa ge. Shide kan la ya cho chen ne chen tu je de shi bu ji du za cha de yang cho chen ne shi de an tu za din de je le ya ten jo da ka de jo ju sam snie de yor wa ge. Shide kan cho chi shide kan da sang je ko ban tu be ge ten yo na me ne tang da yor sa da din ni bo ru gyal da so chi tong me ro.
Ale.
An de gyal da di kan da sang ko da sam tang da kan da sang ko
Ale
so
chi
me.
di di da da yang wo de si chi si
Ah.
du du ja de si.
Odi so la gyal da du an gyal da kan da sang ko so la.
This is da so pge teng sha de na.
No so.
tenjo ten se ya de be kanje ta kan de tenjo tongje ji ka do sa ra
La re.
ko ju khan do go ye me re wa chiru na ba ji mo de samja ji zo por chu jo ji ni ju go ni ka ya de gang do sa ra
La re.
se da tari ji to sa so teng sha de tari ke ba sang shu de chao da ra ba
No, nyam
pe
ne
ji
chen
da
lo
de
ra.
de cham sa mo to ya yo ma ra
La re.
da tu tu de ji sim ji jo ba ni mo da ba da tu shi de da ni ga mo 깨봐 유디 들을 니모 망아 니모 더 쳐도 셴 애니 비 심제 저방에 봐 여러
No,
또
sure.
닝마스리 뒤 닝마스 니모 닝마다 애니 티 닝망가 샤여와
No, no.
어디 간데 디 단다 간데 베케바 상세 대저 때 딘데지 깨봐 상세고 딜 레라우 토야 뭐라
Not there.
그래서 그 닝마이나 다 가리 나면은 소소 시기 있는 닝마이나 에 가르사 이제 최시도 가르사 가도나 들어가지면 돼 카 냠제 쪽제는 따나 카단 지 랑상라 그래서 뭐돼
No, no, sir.
음발 망두다 지 가세는 뭐지들 소소 오늘 휴견은 쇼쇼 말서
No, no, sir. No, sir. So, and this is looking at two different, from two different angles or at levels. Yes, it's true that many of us have found the fully endowed human life characterized by freedoms and enriching factors, which is considered as the most, most powerful life to practice Dharma and all of that. So at a very personal level, that's all true, and if we realize that and make best use of our life, so we are very capable of progressing spiritually, to the great extent possible. But at a macro level, or from a collectivity point of view, when we think in terms of the time, they said this is a degenerated time, Kali Yuga, and for many reasons. One of these is, if you look from a collective point of view, right, the delusions, the afflictive emotions seems to be very rampant, and not only they're rampant, but in terms of the intensity, they seems to be quite crazy, like blown out of proportion kind of thing. So from collectivity macro point of view, so it is a very degenerated time, we compare to many other times before. But at the individual level, yes, we have, the best of life to be able to grow spiritually. Yeah. So that's why, the Geshe, the last point he was saying is, so at the individual level, if we decide and committed ourselves to the practice, it doesn't matter, a lot of the time what's happening, to everybody else, you could still, do your practice well. You don't have to sacrifice your practice.
Level in this other teaching, there are dark eons in which Buddhas never appear at
Oh,
all.
that's right,
even
yeah.
worse, right?
Right. 아래 그런 디스고 답변은 난당 가지고 직직의 닝매 뒤시디 뒤주 독자셔거다 야 산제 만전백이 깨바 문화식으로 디치잖아 야 야보러 와서 그 도어를 돼.
다게 다게 자 셔버서 어디래 소소 비게 때 대조 때또 사예 때마지 디니 등에 사예 때마지 제사 등에 되게 희지 마 대냥도 희고
맞아요.
디진간 좀사는 좀 가보샤고
맞아요.
되게 자 셔버서 다 드드 두다래서야디 제다고 senji고 지어발 셔고
맞아요. 다이나 관한 데서 단다 초진에 시나다 단다 디 가지고 가서고다 다 뒤주 독자 차여로 와게 다 이내야 낭배 쉬운 안에 상제 만점에 문계시에브라 야 문계의 시에는 단다 양 가지고 뒤주 약을 차도 걸어서 다 뜻도 잘 살아
나 문계에서는 차 제가 당이게 자 셔버서야 될다 념도 지리고 대지 저지 밀리터 바세 인 상예 때만 제가 어디 니서다 다 가서 대리 시부레서가 남이 갖고 줘야 되거든 군인소서 제가
So Geshe wants to, yes, he's right. From relative point of view, you're right, that compared to the periods of the eras where we call it dark eras, right, from Buddhist cosmological point of view, Buddhists will never appear, then this degenerate time is much better in some sense, right? So it's all relative point of view from that. But then at the individual level, as we said, that we are very fortunate to have this precious human life and have the abilities and resources to practice. And especially most is that Buddha's teachings are still available, isn't it? So still there are qualified teachers who can guide us. So all of these things are very favorable conditions, right? Making, making our life very valuable and meaningful. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah, sure.
So Geshe said that last time that once Bodhisattva achieves the middling path of the path of accumulation, their
yes,
bodhicitta would not degenerate. Okay, but Bodhisattva on that level could still be reborn in a lower realm.
Could they be reborn?
They could. They could. That means that they could be an animal and still having bodhicitta, or helping with the bodhicitta, or even a human being who doesn't even know that they have bodhicitta. How is that possible?
Okay. 그러나 가리지 쇼 다 가장 예마 경기 순대 관리야 전주 쌤들 간에 냠기 말에 세dio 관라 초람 딩니 숨으로 와게
거리
제대로 갈라는 초람 딩기 전주 쌤바 지익스로 와게 아니 다 야지 가르쳐 그래 깨와 규주로 와게 지금 야와를 깨발로 써버든데 윤고로 와서 야와를 깨베이나 그 단다 전주 쌤들 동그 말아 와서 그 전주 쌤바 차대로 와게
거리
아니 야 밀어 차위네 지 전주 쌤바 고 차대로 와게 근데 다 소소하게 전주 쌤바 이마 함하고든 윤고에 나서 거다게
정신 심바이 뭐 서로 정신 심바이 한번 되는데 간대도 이제 사실
다이는 야와라 야와라 전주 쌤이 또 기기유지 말다 소소 당도
다 미기 째다는 것도 단다 다 째다시는 이자카이 시는 예외 때문에 정신 요 말라고 요 발라
알라노스
다 간저 양 정신 깨서야지 셰시아래 그리는 다 예외들 다 템바들의 정신 템바도 연마도 간 단다 난히 야고제는 이거 말아
얘는 다 예외 거기서 야와를 깨시고 그러게 다 근데 가서 초람 딩고
비즈니스 다 소금 중을 깨시고 다 소금 되네 가데이나 서주세 많이
그래서 얘는 다 깨베이나 그 가서 다 가서 면함 그 왕이 깨버리는 윤고로 와게 말아
대체네 다 대체도 다 페이지 소금 저시는 다 몸 그또 이 페이지 깨투 말해 다 너무 또봐 야세 고거라 제 고거라 다그 페이지 령왕 좀 야지 차도 봐
다 깨시고요
페이지 다다당한도 양 저주세 봐 트는 예선 찍으세요 저주세 봐 트는 예선 찍으세요 요거래 이 디코로 되게 닉바코는 되게 예미해야 뭐도 아니 그 남산 샥바시네 좀 치고 연질은 다 자요 말아 다 이는 그 저주세만 샥바신 다로 말어 다 누효도 년인가 실효도 그래서 되다 심지 저바당 되되니 다 상제서서 말이 심지어서 뒷냠야 인가 셔라 어디마다 뒤지는 예랑 지금 뭐도 녀스가 사가 말아
다 딩보데 계시 초람 딩보 전주 삼바데 레왕 냐왈 깨시기 연
비질 다
세베나 코 아니 전주 쌤데 냠고 말다 전주 차대
비질께나 저서 냥 말이
고 차도로 이네다 디 템바로버디 시라 매버 전주 임섬 딩고지 말고 그냥
다 비질 다 셀라 마세도 지나 다 디레 top 시도 이지래
I'm just make sure that I get the as clear answer as possible, right, on the things. So Geshe said, yeah, like in some textbook authors, they said it's not possible to have bodhicitta or generate bodhicitta on the life of bad migrations, but the text authors that they follow, they said there is a possibility for that. So there's that kind of a different perspectives on this. So Geshe says he's not very sure, but maybe there's a possibility for the bodhisattva on the middle stage of the path of accumulation due to karma can be reborn in a bad migration. But in which case, he or she is still a bodhisattva. Maybe the memory part that I'm a bodhisattva, probably sometimes maybe the power of the bodhicitta might not necessarily be very strong in the sense, but they don't lose the bodhicitta. Does this make sense? Right? Yeah.
If a bodhisattva is reborn as an animal, they wouldn't have the memory of that.
Right.
So how could that be a bodhicitta? Doesn't it have to manifest all the time, spontaneously?
Yes.
So how could bodhicitta be not manifested?
Yes. I want this work. Geshe Choklam Dingbo Chanju Sambachi and that Semjen Gyawashib in Arawage, Leg Rawage. Yeah, Semjen Deliada. 다 전주 쌤문도 줄도 여말 와서 그게 다 전주 쌤이나 그 문도 줄고 그래서 성교서 와게 당할 전주 쌤
심지에 다 둔도스가
둔도스게나 아니 콜이야 전주 쌤 문주도 여말 와스게 와
둔도를 지나 전주 쌤문도 요소 이래 요소 이래 자 최송야다 근데 리다가 되서 뭐 보면 돼 요로
나서
그런 주 최송시야 요새 리다 때는 전주 쌤 요
당문주스도 디 텐테다 가서 그래 semje tamje 가서 semje tamje 되는 거다 가서 그러다 상제 고만 터고서 디 sem문주보다 semje ben에 키다 심이다 되는 게
다디 ben에 다 서주 sembe 주바 가지고 다 삼이겨하는 게 들어다 삼이기 겨하는 게 두로 된제디나 그 두로 많이 쓰고라 두로 된제 모두 두로 많이 나고다
다 이내 단다디 처럼 등보바기 전주 sem바디 레게 왕기 키디 심이 게वे나 근데 디 줄이야 전주 sem문주보 용적으로
레가 안 게잖아 레가 제가 있나 레
이나다 전주 쌤이 문주보 요구로 밖에
전주 쌤다 될라 됐어 다요 이자면다 여러
그렇사
다다 이자카이 전에 희바 인지 문주고 그래서 그래
알아놓으시
다야 가지 이거 이거 말이지. 다 덤보게 만님네 이거 봐셔고. 다 가지 빼는 건저 빼 너마 캐나도 이제 니로도 캐나도도 요 말아.
Lare. Lare.
요 말도 시다 넘바 열어.
Lare.
어디다기 그런데 만년은 되게 니요 다.
Lare. Because I was trying to do like a monastic debate, try to get every fine detail so that we don't stray off as well. So this Geshe said, of course, bodhisattvas are many different levels. There are bodhisattvas on higher level. They can manifest emanations in the bad migration. So they could be dogs or cats or anywhere. But then we say these are really not real dogs and cats. That's one position. But what about us that the bodhisattva in the middle stage of the path of accumulation, due to karma, is reborn as a dog or a cat, right? And does that still have a manifest form of bodhicitta, right? And so Geshe said, yeah, that's, again, the scholars differ on that. Some scholars said that if we, every kind of a mind that we have should be manifest form. Okay, so whereas others say no, sometimes it can be dormant form. For example, they said initially you generate it must be manifest form. In certain conditions, it may be in a dormant form. Still, it's okay. You still have that mind, right? That's a different point of view. Just like we have taken a lot of vows and commitments, right? When we are awake, we may be aware of the vows we have taken, right? It's kind of a very manifest thing. But when we're sleeping deeply, we are really not manifestly thinking about that. But we still have the vows, right? When we are sleeping. So that's how, again, different textbook authors have different perspectives, positions on that.
Seed, not the mind, the seed that is dormant or extant, but not the mind. The mind doesn't manifest, and then it's not there. The seed is there, but the seed is not a mind.
Some scholars say yes, if it's a mind, it must be manifest. But others said even if it's a mind, it doesn't have to be manifest. It can be dormant. So there are different points of view.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Just along those lines, I was wondering if what distinguishes aspirational bodhicitta, something that's labored based on lines of reasoning, and unlabored bodhicitta, is only that the labored and aspirational is reliant on lines of reasoning for you to have that sensation, and then once you attain it at that bodhisattva level that we're referring to right now, if it's just engaged all the time. So if the definition applies, we said it was a primary state of mind accompanied by two motivational factors. If that's for both aspiring bodhicitta and the engaged form where you have it.
So does that definition apply to both types of bodhicitta, right? Question number one. The question number, before you said something about
I think the second part will answer the first part.
Okay. Kurang di condition ku dunga ta dagi nganzu chanju sem gi sinyi shedu kan ya ta dumba nyin den gi sem ji res la barwa ge ti shedu kala da chanju sem le cha sha we ne men sem dan juksem ni yor wa ge sa da da sinyi di ge men sem juksem ni ga la ya kya be sinyi re wa ge ani ji du kala ben men sem rab cha sha ma samlo dan ji ke de wa ge juksem ki in du kan ya jumjen rab den de samlo ma dan ko ki go ra ta khande stress ko ge
da muslim jungsa de 정주선배 dombalang사도 죽음시고로와. 근데 정주선 그런 개박하용다. 정동사 랑사서네 디 정주선들이 죽음이 그래서. 다 정주선 dombal라는 그 정주선문이 선님을 깨는 걸 무슨 시고로.
정주선문을 깨네 저발 주네 다들 무슨 찾아.
저발 주나 무슨 말이야.
알았어. 단데 생이디 니가를 주고 얼마게 number 년대 정주선 세.
주고. 생이 주고. 생이디 가르사 현도서서 라데 가르사 네바스 수기 남리세 샤 줘라. 생이디 주고. 다데 주스문세디라 도아도세 다데 주주 해야 되는 지시거라. 반지 가진 되는 벽에 야가 좀 도와서는 야가 도와서 타지야 될 무슨 시거라. 다데 남들 누구는 가래. 주스문래더라.
그러니까 네가 dombe게 제시고 맞다. 얘네 자와랑에서 죽음 먼저 던지 셔.
자와데 저 예제 줘발라 봤어. 다 담제는 들라 줘봐 지마땅 주고게 영 죽음 샤도고 말해. dombal랑사니. dombal랑드가 진루 줘발 로야 켈린 거라 봐. 정말 정신스 제시도 있다고 사용하다 이제 줘발 로기 임스 갈 라요 말와. 어다 티어 티 켈라는 줘발 라서. 죽음이 있어.
Okay, so point number one, the definition of bodhicitta, that is a primary state of mind accompanied by the two motivational aspirations, right? So that definition applies to both aspiring bodhicitta, we call Mönsim, and engaging or practical bodhicitta, Gyeltsen, right? It covers both. Now, what's the difference between the two? Is that the engaging bodhicitta only arises once we have make the bodhisattva commitment to the vows. Yeah, and because usually how we say that aspiring bodhicitta is not engaging bodhicitta means you have to engage in actions, right? If you have a bodhicitta engaged in action, it becomes engaging bodhicitta, not necessarily, right? That's why I was checking with him, right? So it means you generate the bodhicitta, right? You have become a bodhisattva, but you have not, make the commitments and taking the vows, so to speak, to engage in action. You could be benefiting others, but still it's aspiring bodhicitta. Okay? But once you have taken the commitments, vows, then engage in actions, then it becomes engaging bodhicitta. As Shantideva states in the Guides to Bodhisattva's Way of Life, there's a difference between wishing to go and actual going, right? That explains the difference between aspiring bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta. And Geshe says, okay, maybe we want to go to India, right? So that's like aspiring, I want to go to India. And then we have some kind of make a commitment. I want to go to India, do this and that, and we buy the flight, ticket and everything, and now we are on the flight, right? So that's more like engaging bodhicitta. Yeah, very good, yeah.
So in your question, you implied that engaging bodhicitta, your understanding was that engaging bodhicitta was bodhicitta resulting from a line of reasoning.
Right.
What I was referring to was in your question, you talked about the bodhisattva that's able to, their bodhicitta is going from lifetime to lifetime. That's supposed to be spontaneous. Like they should be able to look at any being like a cockroach.
Right, that's right.
Manifest that without going through the line of reasoning of the seven, exchange and stuff.
There you go. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So that was the first part of the question.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, how is it possible for minds, conceptual minds? Going back to, I agreed a little bit too quickly. Now I have misgivings and qualms. How is it possible for my minds do not carry from lifetime to lifetime? So the conceptual minds, including bodhicitta. So how is it possible for somebody to be reborn in a lower realm and still have that that mind?
Okay.
Am I belaboring the issue?
Okay.
I don't know.
Right. Koran di shugo again. Da nganzo kyawa chin ni chi li ya kyawa phu go wa gen. Chi tu kan li ya bena changju sem da chi mbe ina. Ane kyawa chin chi li ya khande se da ko danda der wa gen. Kar so da manya ba je phu ro sho wa gen. Bena da gi del gen saml tang ge so wa bena da legi wang changju sem ken legi wang gi da nyawa ro che ba cha sha ro wa gen. 이네 다 청주선데 냐마 요마로와 제가 개와진 지리야 근데 심기 내단데 가서 배는 똑바다 강가로 개와진 지 봐표주고 그래서 표단다 간서 표고 그래서다
알레
사 똑바다 동매다 강가 성기요 와게 제가
제 다데 티 간도 단다 데스 개와링 남기셔야 다다 데스가 와 그래서 다 퍼진 테글로지는 다데 저데 다데 롱지미 생기기 남긴 좀 세워 다 평교화된 양들의 강사다 시베키디 케레고 또베도는 샤워와
나래
이때 메시 강가래 깨와랭게 남기도 되시고다 근데 거자 시르도 그 근데 시바도 유튜브 로고로 가지 깨와 통화면서 그 농게면 되고 말아
나래
어디 농게 될 제다디 유지와 있는 다고 단다 가르치겠네 약고시에네 깨와 심을 팬야 단도 독자시 깨와 심을 강사디 영야 강가 어디 간 로고라
다 고랑 디 समझ के 박자 좀 केव 마인 바다 셈게 남도 상행라 소바 가는 답변을 전주스로 여러 바게 되게 돼 마냐 바디 코 칸데스 케르고 서 와다 박자 케르고도 콘자 직 섬던 거로
아레레 알레 데데다데 이레 베나 전주스바도 다 베나 깨와름 너무 충충거디도 다 미겨는 신거도 그 조정통도 요거 말아
올라와
그러와
올라래
그 갈래가 잡아서 제대해서는 거디 남서 차와야 차와로
알아놓서
어디 차와로
놓서 알아 거다지 박자가 남배서 망치 케되고 저러게 이제 똑바 되게 다 개발진 누구 말어
똑바에
저
똑바다 베지 똑바 로쇼이다 똑바 참어도 다 간데 도바 라바 유 그게 태제 유 이제 주기셔야 되는 도마 봐.
No, no.
이제는 이기 남기라 도바 예.
Yeah. Geshe is saying that in many Buddhist schools of thought, Prasangika is a different category, little bit. So they come up with different labels for mental consciousness that goes from one life to another life, right? They're not saying that all kinds of consciousnesses go from one life to another life, but there is one, usually this is the mental consciousness or the foundation consciousness or something, right? And so with that mind, the other states of mind, with it, some more or less they go in the form of sort of a dormant form, And when they get activated by different conditions, then they pop up. Like, for example, the example Geshe has given is, let's say a bodhisattva is reborn as a child, right? As a child, sometimes the bodhicitta is not still, activated that much. But as the child grows up, then due to conditions, then that bodhicitta might become more manifest, But that bodhicitta is carried from the previous life to this life, right? But as a child, still it is there, but it's not very active, So things like that. Yeah.
So primary minds could carry from one life to another life. Not mental consciousness, but primary minds.
Alaporang dagin zosem se digida kowadin ganzo number sheba yawajing the jig dress said zosem se jorwa that dig ko yawad chetu ko samarwa ta ko ji sam ko sarwa ke zosem de yawajing the jig rugu yobache namse shama de rugu mebadin samata zosem da nam di paru yawad chegu
da zosem se de sem jing na sem se de zosem se ra sem da zosem ni ji kwa ra
no
다다다 저기면 생이 있는 위에서는 양 주기 매번 남이 차차야라 어디 조심들이 되면 조심나라 야라 차라야라
어래 다 차되게 맛이
차도 두고 다 rak바다 분바 던진게 카도 그 째는 이제 그 째알린 두고 말아 어디 그 히르드단 다 기티 등에 다 째는 데리용 데네 파도 있어야 가지 남이 처음이지 근데 그 메레디 그 사원도 있어야 양 때문에 남이 hiện 주 서야지야 차상을 지게 히르드양 그 차데 뭐 현대 가가 들어와
Yeah, so I think the Tibetan word Chosen, primary mind, there are all kinds of primary minds. There are some that go from one life to another, others they don't. So the subtle form they do. And so what happens is they carry a lot of those other minds, dormant form. And so then, due to conditions, they get activated and they manifest more, right? So, for example, we might have a primary mind that apprehends a vase or a pillar or something, accompanied by omnipresent factors. But that is not going to go into the next life. So it is more of the subtle form of a primary mind that goes from one life to another life. Yeah. Okay, so we'll stop there. Geshe has another engagement, today right after this, before lunch. So I have to be time moderator, I guess. Today, it's almost 1, actually. I have an announcement to make. November 3rd, Tuesday, is Lababdujin, Buddha's descent coming down from Tushita to our land. And so we are doing a special talk offering. And the talk is a Tibetan term. English feast offering makes not much sense. It's a Gana Chakra in Sanskrit, probably makes more sense. So we basically, those who are new to this, you're welcome. We open this one up for everybody. It's more like we do chanting and prayers. You can bring fruits and something, right, to offer, and then we will distribute them among ourselves, okay? So November 3rd, there's a lot of flyers I think they made and put there, so you can pick it up one. Tuesday evening, 7:30.
Yes.
So Geshe will briefly explain the significance of the day before that, Okay. And as I said, so Geshe has engagement after this. If you don't need to see him today, you can postpone and see next Sunday. Okay, so he has another engagement. Let me see. Kangen lo de dimye dinde nyinda namda rabsebe jinyen dungu jije sije nije toga lebamze kanda sebe zara mare mendon donge yes rozo gon la boje daze yan la zhuju yangden so zoda che zho nyemo nyelo leje cha zho zhe je mare mense donge jinye zhe rade na dene da je sa ju ta zhe yende lo zo je se juda junyin je ta lu mense yang be yang la de omara bazana di Omara bazana de zenden chöje chenra böse ye dalu temo memba rapsene kada tenje shunglu nobo lode bobe na wan zendo so lode gyazu utun bega de kesan konbe chudo memba shin mando jiju be danye shugun jola so wan de neba chilu tume kyamche naro nasa ke chu kim hensa. A prayer request for someone who is terribly ill, and I'm sure there's many others who are terribly ill too. So think about them and do some dedication. And the person's name here is Chu Kim Hai, and we'll do a little bit of prayer for them. 도제 공랑녀매 좀 된데 전담도 변인도 동에서 두손매저 상제 면결라 빈도 야요라 사 엄베샤제 베제 마베샤제 베샤라 저 서mon가도 있어 엄베샤제 베샤제 마베샤제 베샤라 저 서mon가 엄베샤제 베샤 마베샤제 엄베샤제 베샤제 마베샤제 엄베샤제 베샤제 마베샤제 서mon가 엄베샤제 마베샤제 Ombesha Jabesha, Jamabesha, Ranja Samonga de So Gavandi, Yudo, Membe, Gavon, Dojon, Doa, Chija, Malu, Sala, Barasho. Page 21. Obeisance to my Guru and Protector Manjushri, who holds at his heart a scriptural text symbolic of his seeing all things as they are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and free us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields this sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance, you who have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages, achieving the highest perfection of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha. I bow down to you, Manjushri, Om Arabhazanadi, O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. Page 31. Like the sweet perfume of white lotus, born in the ocean of knowledge, nourishing honeybees, the fortunate being, your fame pervades all directions. You are proficient and powerful in upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lord San Tenzin Wangda, respectfully I pray.
Nhất tâm kính lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, bậc đại trí ngài điều phục hai chướng ngại, tượng nhật quan lan tỏa khắp mười phương, bậc thực chứng chân nghĩa màu rốt ráo, từ tim ngài Bát Nhã Kinh thủ hộ nhiệm màu, cõi luân hồi chúng sanh thọ nghiệp báo, bị ngăn che bởi phiền não vô minh, sở hữu 60 pháp âm thủ thắng, cùng đại bi ngài hóa độ chúng sanh, tựa từ mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử, tiếng rồng vang ngài thức tỉnh hữu tình, gươm trí tuệ ngài chặt đứt vô minh, tận diệt muôn vàn khổ đau cùng ách nạn, trường tử Như Lai tối thắng toàn giác, ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân, báu thân ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh, 112 tướng hảo Như Lai, đê đầu đảnh lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, cúi xin ngài tận diệt ám chướng vô minh. Om Arapasanadi. Ban pháp lực diệt phiền não vô minh, pháp vi diệu cùng muôn vàn luận giải, như diệu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng, đàn xanh nơi trí thủ thắng đại dương, hàng thiện căn như ong mật thọ nương, hồng danh ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá, đấng thiện xảo uy dũng bảo tồn pháp bảo vô giá.
yang ju sen jo ren bo je ma ye ba na ye ju je ye wa nyang ba me ba yang gong ne gong pe wa ju dong ye da wa ren bo je ma ye ba na ye ju ye wa nyang ba me ba yang gong ne gong pe wa ju sa ji bie ji zhu ji me do zhao ri rao lin ji nian de jian ba de sang jie jin do mi de bi wang lu gen nang da jin la jie ba ju kang ri ra wei guo wei xin gang de pen dang de wa ma lu zhong wei 今日是王定心江左一下边西点把天君日一当古如让那满天老光你让当